calls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome to Snob's Wife for joining me this evening. We are doing an episode for November 18th of Daily Gun Show, coming live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, approximately, and we talk about guns for an hour. Let's see, so today is the 18th. It is a Monday, and I'm digging into some links here. Got started a little bit later than usual. Just got back from the tour. Gone out to a rally in Washington, D.C. that happened earlier this month on November 2nd. And then we drove to Tulsa and hung out there for a bit and went to the Big Gun Show, and then visited Dragon Man up in Colorado and ended up getting back home last Thursday. So did not do a show on Friday, probably fell asleep. And so this will basically be the first day coming back from the tour and doing a show. So see once the alerts go out how many people show up tonight. Right on. Yeah, good meeting you as well. It's always neat to see people. It's always interesting to talk to people who do stuff live because we kind of know them already. We know each other already, and the meeting part of it is an aspect, but it's not an introduction, right? Like it's just a formality that it's awkward. It's not normal. Most of us are old enough to have grown up before that was this norm. Now, that's not such a big deal. I'm sure that's going to happen a lot going forward, and people aren't going to feel as awkward about it because of this is a normaler thing now. So Snob is out there, or Snob's wife is out there, and that's who I'm chatting with there. But it says there's 9 people out there. The way YouTube works, we don't know you're there unless you say something. It's an anonymous platform. It's got its disadvantages and whatnot. Looks like Ozzy's out there as well. And let's see. So today is the 19th or the 18th. What is today? Yeah, today's the 18th. So tomorrow will be the 19th. We got Harlan Carter passes away tomorrow back in 1991. He was the guy that worked with Jeff Knox to create the NRA ILA, the legislative branch of the NRA, back in the 70s, and he was an interesting dude. That's all I'll say. He killed a guy when he was 13 or 16 or something, and was a border patrol guy, I think, for a while, and then ended up being the first president of the NRA ILA. So I'm looking now as I'm chatting for my other calendar because I know my October one isn't really up to date. So now I'm scrolling through my actual up-to-date calendar that isn't just posted online anywhere to see what we got. So no, we don't have anything. We have Surefire Lights, started yesterday in 1979, and also Joyce Lee Malcolm was born yesterday, October 7th. Oh, I'm not October, wrong month. Hold on, neither one of those things was right. No, that's all we got. We got the NRA being charted. It's the NRA's birthday was on the 17th. That was yesterday. And then Harlan Carter, the first director of the ILA, dies tomorrow in 1991. Later on this week, we'll have Walther being born. So all the Walther fans that are out there, all the Walther fanboys, Walter Willies we call him, should be happy that it's his birthday coming up. It's Stoner's birthday is the same day, and I think there's more people that like Stoner probably. Those would be called Stoners, and there's a lot of Stoners, so that they can celebrate on the 22nd. Then you got on the 23rd, Presser versus Illinois. It's argued. It's a Supreme Court ruling where the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States limited only the power of Congress and the national government, but not of the states. So that's an interesting one. So Pressure versus Illinois, which was argued in 1885, is, I suppose, the reason why stupid ass states get to do stuff that the Constitution doesn't do, or that the Constitution restricts, because the Second Amendment limits only power of the Congress and the national government to control firearms specifically, I guess, not that of the states. So Presser versus Illinois back in 1885. Can get mad at our grandparents for that one, something like that. Let's see, if you've had more than 5 grandparents here, let's say, then you're to blame for the gun laws today, or at least your family, your line. 24th, is that going to be this week still? No, 24th is already starting next week, but that will be the day that Maxim died. Maxim from the machine gun, I think. Oh, we got Ghost jumping in. I didn't see you in there. Sorry about that. Thanks for trying.
Yeah, man. What's going on?
I almost didn't link you because I've been doing these shows, and now it's 10 o'clock for me. So now I feel it a little bit more that it's late because up until your time changes, I've been doing this show at 9 p.m., which is after. It's evening, right? It's not even night. Now 10 o'clock is pretty late. I was kind of tired, so when you go to bed, you got work and stuff. I was not even going to link you, and I think you're like the last person I included on the blind copy tonight.
Well, you saved the best for last.
Yeah, no, like I said, I just glad I did. And then Dead Horse jumped in earlier, chatting, and you jumped in. Thanks for joining. So,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm trying. I've been saying this for a while, ever since when did I do this? Whenever something happened and we went on, I stopped doing the show for a bit there. Went on like a month-long break or whatever, just take a break. I think we got to episode 850, and I'd been trying things, and it was crapping out. And it was, like I say, at 9 o'clock. Honestly, I don't like doing the show at 9. It's like a dumb time of night. It was after all of y'all did all of your evening shows. But for me, when it's, the times before the time shift, when it's early, that stuff all happens at 6 p.m. So, from 6 to 7, 8, you guys are doing your shows. And then I go get into something. I go start some project. And then I got to stop that project an hour into it, or maybe something, an hour or something into it. And that was frustrating. I didn't like doing that. Now at 10, I'm old, so I'm going to fall asleep. But I don't like doing it in the evening anymore. And I think I started doing the show because there was a massively live, or I should say, what's the word? Like an active evening, late night chat going on over on Gun Channels all the time. So this show just worked to have like a formatted show for those people, except for Pants and DTP and a couple others that show up on the regular, Dead Horse and others. Like, we just don't have that. We have a trickle of the stream we used to have back in the day, and I don't necessarily have it in me to create that. I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not trying to create audiences, but I do want to keep doing this show. So I've been efforting, and I just spent 21 days in a vehicle by myself driving. And as you know, it's not quite like being in prison or something, but you don't have a lot of choice. It's listen to the radio or podcasts or something, or go nuts. So had a lot of time to think, and I've been trying to figure out how to do this show, get some things accomplished that I want to get accomplished, and I'll continue to effort at that. So thanks to you guys for jumping in tonight. And I know I've been saying that a lot, but eventually I will get this show, probably with a time change, to a place where I can do it a little more comfortably and see if it works into a schedule there. But anyway, with that in mind, I figured tonight we would chat about the tour a little bit. I didn't really have a chance to go live as much as I would have liked during the tour. Nobody really went live and invited me in on a regular enough basis, so I felt like I was updating anybody, my Patreon specifically, about the tour. But this particular tour was unplanned. I didn't sit down and think about this one. I didn't really want to go up until the last possible moment where, at least for me, I had to have enough lead time to actually get there. I wasn't even sure if I was going to go or if I really wanted to go that bad. But I kind of put it up to, I don't want to say fate, but I figured I'd put some stuff up that had value, or maybe, could have value, would create value, resource on my end. It would create financing for the trip on my end. And I think I raised about I think I put up on the store $1,400 or something like that, $1,200 worth of product, specifically like those little tabs and stuff, like stuff specifically for the tour. And I think I only sold like $700 worth of that stuff. So it was not a no brainer. It wasn't like, oh, I might as well take this trip because, the gas is at least paid for. It wasn't like that. It was all going on the card. So, like I said, this wasn't one I was necessarily planning for. And because of that, I had a lot of time to think. Like if I would have planned for it, if I would have been able to do the trip in the best possible way, I wouldn't have been in the road for 8 hours at a time. Ideally, I think I would like to not drive more than like 2 or 3 hours at a time, so that it doesn't become an issue. The mind-numbing doldrum of driving for like 8 or 10 hours. Because when you're driving 10 hours, I don't know about you guys how often you have to do that. I don't do it for a living or anything, so I'm not good at it. For a portion of that, I'm bored as hell. And for a portion of it, I'm struggling to stay awake. And then I guess that's about it. I go from like black or white. I'm either like not really enjoying it because a lot of the time I'm driving through places I've already been, so I'm not really seeing new stuff. And then a lot of the time I'm just trying to stay awake, and I don't enjoy driving like that at all. And it wouldn't work for trying to do anything productive, right? Like trying to listen to a podcast even. It would, it would be distracting. Anyway, that wasn't really a question, but anyway, so I figured I'd chat a bit about the tour. I don't know, did you guys want to dig in anything before we head off of that
No,
track?
I was wanting to see, but I can wait, probably till you get to that point, but how Dragon Man went.
Yeah, I wanted to hear about Dragon Man and some of the other cool places you stopped on the way there and on the way back.
Well, I want to spend about an hour on each day of the tour, and that was the 21st day of the tour, so that'll take about 21 hours for us to get to that topic. But
Okay, so I'll see you tomorrow about this time.
yeah, maybe tomorrow a little bit earlier.
Dragon Man probably deserves several hours.
Dragon Man was pretty good. So I was I forget where. At some point, I figured out somewhere during the trip, because again, I didn't really plan this. I was just sort of looking at everything that was possible. And I know I missed some major things, and I discovered some things along the way. But I just took whatever I knew and slotted it in there. Things like the Springfield Museum, the NRA museum that I haven't yet been to in Springfield. Like I figured, okay, I can do that. I'm going back and forth right past there twice, technically, so I'm sure I could do that. I knew I wanted to get to DC for the stupid tour or the rally. I figured it was a good opportunity to get up and see Patriot, and I thought I'd be able to go past midnight, and then the people in Ohio and Indiana, and then cut across to Illinois and come back for that Wanamaker show. So I had some things that I figured I could do, but then all the other stuff wasn't or was falling into whatever. So when I was driving somewhere on the way up there, I think is when I figured out that Dragon Man was going to be out of the question. Like his last tour was Sunday that we were in Tulsa, and I didn't really feel like driving all the way to DC, then all the way to Tulsa, and then leave Tulsa on like Saturday night and drive overnight to try to get to Dragon Man for Sunday morning, right? That just seemed dumb. So I figured I'd leave Dragon Man off of it, off of this tour or whatever. And oh well, he's there every year. I would just go visit him again. I've been there plenty of times before. But I forget when it was, like Friday or Saturday even. While I was in Tulsa, or in Oklahoma at least, I think is when I figured out, hey, wait a minute, Dragon Man said he's going to be open on Memorial Day, and that's Monday. You know how Oklahoma is. It's not open on Monday anyway. For whatever reason, most everything in Oklahoma is closed on Monday. So like stores and museums and things, it's like they're closed on Sunday and Monday. So I was sitting there thinking, because some of you people were staying in Oklahoma after Tulsa on Monday because there was no point in driving home Sunday night. Others left Sunday, so as we were kind of thinking about Monday, I thought, hey, wait a minute, Veterans Day is Monday, and Dragon Man said he's going to do a tour on Monday. That was going to be his last tour, not Sunday. So anyway, long story, I figured at some point there, I kind of figured, okay, Tulsa's good, and it's a it wasn't a bad Tulsa. It wasn't the best Tulsa we've ever seen, but it certainly wasn't bad, right? It was medium or better. And then we had a good group of people there. There was nothing really. It was a great time. It's just that when I started asking around, I think Ghost, you had to leave Saturday. Somebody else left with me on Saturday.
I left about half an hour after you did on Sunday.
Not Saturday, not Sunday. And then everybody else was staying overnight pretty much. And I was like, well, dang, that's, I've been to Dragon Man lots of times. But then when I started asking them what they were going to do, they were all going to go to whatever that stupid place is where you guys pile a bunch of raw food into a bowl and then they cook it. Like, I forget what that's called,
yeah.
like Mandarin Grill. Except
Kansas Grill.
Yeah. So, and I could take that or leave that. It's neat and everything, and that's not really a chain, or if it is, it's not a huge chain. It's not like going to, I don't know, what's the name of the rice chain, Panda Express or something, right? Like, it's not that bad, but at the same time, it is a chain, right? It's like, it's not a unique restaurant that's super authentic or anything. It's just
Yeah, they got them all over.
Yeah. So I figured, you guys are all going to be doing that. And then what am I going to miss? More than likely, I'll miss a bunch of bullshitting around the house, which, it's not like I wanted to miss it, but I also wasn't going to be missing anything more than we miss in a live chat. So that's when I figured, okay, I'm already driving. Oh, I don't know how many miles it was at that point. Maybe let's say 5,000 miles. I might as well, because here's the thing. I look at it like I've got to go across the continent. So I'm in Oklahoma City and I've got to go to Tucson. So that's what, it's 17 hours, but it's probably like 10 hours in just the east, or I guess the west direction. So I've got to drive 7 to 10 hours west, no matter what. So I could drive an hour north and be in Colorado Springs during that drive east west, or I could just drive south and be home, 2 hours earlier. But it really only adds, I think, like an hour going north, or maybe an hour and a half, something north. And then everything else is just west travel that I got to do anyway. So when I look at it, going to Colorado from Tulsa is just really 2 or something, 3, maybe it's more than 2, but 4 hours out of the way, out of a 12-hour trip. So I figure it's not that big a deal, and it gave me an excuse to go past Dodge City again. And Dodge City Museum, they're rebuilding that. So I got a chance to see that 2 years ago, or was it last year? 17, I forget now. So I saw a while back, and it's a neat museum and everything, but they had this big grassy area for no reason, like a big picnic area, and it seemed kind of awkward. Now it makes more sense that maybe they had this plan all along, because they're building a giant building in there, and it's like really big. So it was just neat to be able to check that out, see it during the process, and then get over to Dragon Man for that last tour. So anyway, that was a hell of a lot of chatting to get to Dragon Man. So I did get to Dragon Man's last tour. So here's the thing. I get there on Monday at 9:30. It starts at 10. Barely got there. It was I think I gave myself like 16 or 17 hours to drive 10 hours. And I also wanted to stop at the 45th Infantry Division Museum on Veterans Day. No, I'm sorry, the day before Veterans Day, because that was the Marines' birthday. And I figured it would be cool to drop $20 in an Army museum on the Marines' birthday, because I'm not a Marine. So went to Dragon Man's, got there like a half an hour early. And I only really got there on time because of the hour. You lose or you gain an hour, whatever it is, going to Colorado from Kansas or someplace. So I ended up getting there on time. The day before, on Sunday, which was like I had thought was the last tour, had 90 people. I don't know. You haven't been to that tour yet, huh, Dead Horse? But you've seen it enough.
Yeah, no, I haven't been to it. I wish. That's definitely a goal of mine one day. I mean, that's definitely on the bucket list.
I'm trying to think of what these carpets are. He's got carpets on the ground that are a standard size. Like, we've all seen them before. They're just a big carpet. Anyway, so the aisles must be 8 feet wide, 6 foot, 8 feet wide. But I can't imagine 90 people. Like, I'm just saying, like, that's a lot of people to crowd into the tour. It would actually be kind of neat to see a really crowded one, but the most people I've ever seen there is maybe like 20 or 25. I didn't really count. I guess I probably should have. And that was years ago. It was a different tour. So this time, Sunday, he had 90 people show up for the tour. Now, here's the thing. He said 90 people showed up, but he might have done 2 tours on Sunday. Like sometimes he'll do that because a tour isn't 2 hours. If people show up and there's too many, he'll just have them wait or come back and then do a second tour at I guess noon. So that could have been 2 tours of 45. Ah, holy fuck! You scared the shit out of me. Got an inchworm on my fucking shoulder.
I blame you and the Honda for that increased attendance. You guys throwing them out because, like, I had heard of, like, I read an article and stuff and heard of Dragon Man, the most heavily armed man in America and all that, but none of the things I ever read or saw ever mentioned he had a museum and did tours and, like, I mean, I just thought it was just a guy with a lot of guns, and it wasn't until I met you that I first learned and watched your vids on him that I learned that, like, oh, like, wow, there's an actual museum there and all that. So I think it's because of people like you that he's probably because I think when Honda went, I think there was like 35 or 40 people on the tour he went on.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'll take credit for sure, but I don't know because there's a lot of people in Colorado that know about him for sure, but he's also not shy. I mean, he's on social media. There's a heck of a lot of people going through there that are promoting it. But no, I would agree with. I mean, it's not just us, but I think that definitely he's still one of those things to be discovered. I think I seen him on some TV show back in the day when there was like a bunch of these gun TV shows on cable. Maybe even before that, but I know I seen him on some gun TV show on cable.
Discovery Channel. I think Discovery Channel had a thing with him on it, right?
It might have been Mythbusters. It's been a long time since I watched TV. I mean, I don't mean like on Netflix or on cable or something. I seen it. I mean, like on a real TV. I seen this. So this had to be like 8 years ago or something that I was ever watching TV, but or even longer than that. But anyway, whatever I saw, it was more like you said. Like, here's the guy with a lot of guns, and they showed like maybe his gun shop or some thing of guns, but it was more like guns. It wasn't like a diorama or a setup or like in a museum or anything. So yeah, I had no idea that he had a museum until something years ago, a couple of years back, whenever it clicked, and I was like, oh, that's that guy. And yeah, I made a beeline as soon as I figured out. And again, I'll keep promoting it. It's unique. I mean, it is really just a man's collection in his garage. It's just that his garage is larger than most buildings, most cafeterias or movie theaters. It's like 50,000 square feet, I think, at this point, and it's 30% vehicles, 30%, maybe 25%, 50 Elvis rock and roll stuff, and then the rest of it is like just guns and military surplus. So it's really just a guy's collection in a really big garage, and he charges a bunch of people $10 to go walk through it with him. So it's a unique experience every time you go, and it just gets bigger and bigger every time. And what's neat is he's, I mean, I guess if you've watched more than one of the tours or more than one of the people recording their tour, the pieces, I mean, he's got a room for each campaign, let's say, like World War II, Vietnam, whatever, and that doesn't change, but the size of those rooms and the order, he doesn't do it chronologically at all. He just takes you through physically, like the building in different ways each time. And I think that's just a factor of how he's growing his own museum and how he's laying out his collection in the growing building, because literally the building he just keeps adding on to. So he just has more building every so often. And then when he kind of distributes or shifts his collection, it just sort of evolves or whatever. But yeah, it's certainly the most authentic and unique experience for firearms. Somebody that's interested in any part of history. And then just the fact that you're in that room, in that building, knowing that it all exists. And it's not like some other lame museum where they chop, you go into most museums and you're seeing what used to be a real thing, but it's been destroyed. Like, it's been destroyed in a nice way where you don't see the scars, but those guns aren't ever shooting again. And you go into Dragon Man's and, not only can they still shoot, but they're all loaded. Like as you're walking past them, they are able to be shot right then. And think about all the people that go to Dragon Man's and like a real museum, like, they've walked right past all that stuff and there's never been an issue and there won't be an issue. People aren't bad. So then, I don't know, I'm doing a shitty job of explaining it, but on Monday I got there at 9:30, only 10 people showed up. So Sunday he had 90. On Monday, Veterans Day itself, he had like 10 people. I think 3 of them were kind of old. 2 of them were, middle-aged, I guess. A couple of kids. And then the couple that were middle-aged might have been veterans. I think out of the group of 10, maybe 4 were veterans or something, or at least raised their hands when he asked who veterans were, kind of thing, or took them up on the veterans. It was free for veterans on Veterans Day. But I didn't. Did I give Roll Call a link? I think I did. I don't know when he gets off. I know he gets off of work late. I don't know if he'd still be up or not. So anyway, it was a pretty cool tour. Dragon Man was pretty tired and it was super cold. And I get the impression that it was cold even for Colorado because Dragon Man said something and went inside and got a coat. It was distracting cold for me, but enough that I'm going to keep bringing. I brought it up every time I talk about it. It was cold, so that might have been one of the reasons people didn't show up, especially people that have been there before, knowing that it's not heated. Didn't want to brave through that, or I don't know, maybe they just had other things to do. I'm about half distracted. I found must have been when I took the dog out to pee. I got an inchworm on me earlier when you were talking. It scared the shit out of me because it was on my shoulder. When I saw it out of my peripheral, it looked like like a snake the size of an alligator rearing up next to me.
And it was an inchworm?
Yeah, it's just a little inchworm. Now I've got him on my hand. He's trying to figure out what the hell's going on. But these turn into moths, huh? I should probably get rid of it.
I never even really see those up here at all. I don't know if it's because we have too bad of winters or what, but I never ever see those up here.
Yeah, I don't see them very often either. That's why it's not a common thing at all. But it's I'm also I haven't just killed it or anything. It's just kind of neat to see him. I don't know if it's him or her walking around. But I'm now getting sick of it. He's just the bug, so I'm going to throw it in my garbage. All right. So I guess Ghost was using his phone or something. Must have chunked out or got kicked off.
Yeah, he said he'd be back.
Oh, okay.
I see Bob out there in the chat.
Yep, I gave him a link. Oh, I see it now. Yeah, I flip it over to the other chat, I guess.
Well, how much do you think Dragon Man's collection is worth? Real Call wants to know. I'd have to say like millions, right?
How many did you say?
I'd say millions, like in the millions, like.
Well, yeah, but he gave me the number right here, so I have the number. Well, he didn't give it to me. He said it, and this time I took notes while I was listening to the tour. So
I'd say 4.5 million. That'd be my guess. 4.5 million.
All right, so that's Dead Horse's guess. Anybody that wants can try to up or down that, I suppose. So it's 80,000 square feet. Excuse me, it's 80,000 square feet. He's got 1,700 uniforms on those mannequins in there. He's got 5,000 helmets, 4,000 flags, and then I wrote 175. So I don't know what the 175 is. And that's all the notes I took. And then I also have the number of millions of dollars that he estimates it at. Roll Call is saying 3.5. It is neither of those two numbers, by the way. It is not 12 million. So it is between 3.5 and 12. I'll say that, but it is not as much as 12. Which I don't know how you would come up with that. I mean, I guess it's possible you could go in there or have. What would you do? How would you do it? I would think I would have 3 or 5 people go in there, and I would say, go in there and tell me how much I've got and what it's worth, and then let them each start in a different angle. But I don't know if you paid attention to his 50s room. Like, I kind of know what military stuff is worth, but like, I don't know. He's got every single like gas pump from.
I'm guessing he's going off of what he has it insured for. Probably.
Yeah, well, that must be. But still, I can't think that the number he gave doesn't seem like. Again, he's got gas pumps. Those gas pumps are worth like many thousands of dollars alone, and that's like in normal condition. He's got them in decent condition. I know he's rebuilt some things, but he doesn't half-ass it. So I suspect his rebuilds are still worth money. But a lot of times he buys collections from people. So I suspect not everything in there is like a rebuild. I think he probably has a lot of authentic, old, beautiful, pristine examples of stuff. And that 50s room alone, like all those push cars and bicycles that he's got, like, I can't even imagine. He's got cigarette machines and Coke machines. And like I say, I kind of know what surplus is worth, and I barely know what that stuff's worth, but I suspect it's worth a shit ton, because there's got to be people that would want one of those, Coca-Cola machine or a cigarette machine in their bar, or in either their personal bar or their store, like an actual bar.
I watch that what is it, American Picker show sometimes, and
Yeah.
they go around and buy those gas pumps and old Coke machines, and like sometimes like those things will be pretty beat up, and those guys are buying them for thousands of dollars, and they're rusty and beat up and broken, and and they're buying them for thousands of dollars. And if that means if they're buying them for thousands, they all they do is turn around and sell them, right? Mm-hmm. That means they're selling them for more than that. So
right. It means if they're willing to pay $5, then they're super cheap and they screw people. So it's got to be worth a lot more than that, because they're looking to always make a good. They're never like, oh, I can see
that whole Coca-Cola thing is huge.
Yeah, and it's worldwide, right? I mean, that's not even just here. Any rich person anywhere might want that, or any bar, any restaurant anywhere might want that.
I've seen. I can't remember who did it, but I saw a video where someone turned like an old Coca-Cola machine into a gun safe, and I thought that was pretty cool.
I think I would just take a gun safe and wrap it with Coca-Cola stuff. But yeah, I've looked inside like soda machines and stuff. I mean, they're thick and stuff, but I suspect it's not because it's strong. It's just because it's a bunch of insulation and stuff. I don't think they worry about people physically breaking into Coke machines. I don't think they make them to be super secure. Or I mean, the doors maybe, but not like the sides and stuff. So often those things are
like a lot of those things are out left alone, unattended, right? At rest stops or parks, or I mean, just like no one watches
the doors. So. Yes, but the sides and stuff. I bet you got to order one special to have like a reinforced sides. Because I know what you're saying. Like when it's out next to a telephone pole or something. But most of the time they're like in some kind of a brick enclosure, or sticking outside of a building. Like the machines themselves usually aren't that vulnerable, and if they are, like I say, you probably can buy a like reinforced one. But that's what I guess you would buy for your safe or whatever.
It'd probably be a decent cheap, like if you could get one cheap enough, it'd probably be a good alternative to just those cheap gun cabinets, right? It would probably be just as secure as one of those cheap gun cabinets, like not as secure as like a good safe, but.
I mean, it depends. If you put a soda machine in your gun room, then anybody in their right mind is going to know that there's guns in it, probably, especially if it's not turned on, it's not cold or anything. And then, on the vice versa, how many people are going to put guns in their fancy soda machine or, cigarette machine or something, like in the living room, So it's probably a set and setting type of thing, like in a gun shop or something that might work, but unless you had like the kind of room where there's like a pool table and a bar, and then it's also got your guns in it, maybe like a rec room or something.
Yeah, no, they sell that ammo now. It comes like basically in a pop can, right? It's like the same size as a pop can.
Uh-huh.
So I could totally see a gun store selling that ammo like in a Coca-Cola machine, right? Like,
That'd be kind of cool.
because it comes in that same exact size can.
That would be cool. Then you wouldn't have to bother with the refrigeration side of it.
Yeah. But it would kind of suck, like putting in the $20 or whatever in quarters for a $1 bill.
Well, they would stick what do you call it on the front? A credit card thingy on the front.
Oh yeah, that would probably work.
Midnight saying the guy that turned the Coke machine into a safe kept it in his garage. Yeah, I guess that would work. All right, so I'm going through. I kept pretty good notes. I definitely did not use a good enough notebook. So I think going forward, I've used notebooks most of my life doing things just to keep notes on because there wasn't computers or anything, so there wasn't an option. And then at some point, I think with smartphones, I probably flipped. I never really was the type to carry around like a laptop to take notes, and I've never liked tablets, so I don't have tablets. But probably when smartphones happened, I probably quit carrying around a notebook very rare often. And while I'll take a notebook to like a class or something like an event where I know that I am going to use the notebook, I just don't carry one every day. So I don't think I'm going to get to where I carry one every day anymore. But I went to the gun rights policy conference and I noticed I did not bring a notebook, and almost immediately I wanted to start taking notes because this is my third year at AmCon, and I really was interested in taking notes to go back and address stuff that issues from the gun rights policy conference. Clover gave me a notebook, and it was the kind that's like, I guess 5 by 8.5 or something, like half a sheet of paper size. So it's not as small as like the fit in your shirt pocket type, but it's the kind that fit in like a cargo pocket of your military pants or something. And that was actually a pretty good form factor, like a pretty good size notebook, um, dimensions wise, and it was as thick as any notebook, so it had plenty of pages in it, and it worked out well for me. And that made me think, oh, I'm definitely bringing a notebook to this trip, right? I went up the week before to Vegas and forgot a notebook. I had the one that Clover gave me, and I used it, and I went, okay, I'm definitely bringing a notebook, but I'm going to go back to the 8.5 by 11 size so that I've got a full size notebook and everything for this trip. And I went into my pile of notebooks that I had, and I had this blank one in there, but I must have got it at a dollar store because it's cheap as shit, and the paper is basically like one level better than toilet paper. So, I mean, it works for if you were just sitting at your desk in a building or something, but going in the van and knocking it around and opening it and closing it, the pages aren't getting, what's the word, like, how they get like weathered or whatever on the edges. Instead, it's just like brittle and it's like flaking off. Like if it's just a shitty paper, and it's so brittle that the spiral part is breaking and stuff. So while I was able to use it, I was actually almost desperately looking for a better notebook along the way. And I didn't stop in and go to like an actual, like an Office Depot or something would probably have my best selection or something to choose from. But I never really went to anything besides dollar stores or anything, and gun shops. But I was looking for a Right in the Rain notebook, and I never found one on the whole trip. But I think that's what I'm going to use going forward is Right in the Rain. So they got that good paper, and the whole idea of taking notes is so that you've got something to record the trip, archive it, and uh, stopping and reading as I'm typing here or chatting here. Um, I'm just noticing that that it was definitely worth. I think they cost like $10 or more, sometimes $15 to buy one of those. I think it's worth it for the long term to have your notes actually last longer than the trip itself.
One thing that I was like kind of against, well, I wasn't against it, I just didn't think it would be for me or plausible, is a stylus and just using your cell phone. And my wife has one of those like stylo LG phones that has like the built-in stylus to it. And I've been using that, and it changes my chicken scratch into regular text, and it can even read my chicken scratch. Like I have really bad handwriting, but I can sit there just really fast and do a grocery list or whatever I'm doing and just scratch it out on the phone with the stylus. And then it changes it automatically into normal text. And it's just basically saved to the notepad. And my phone doesn't even have a built-in stylus, and it still has that app that'll do that. And so that might, I don't know if you've ever used a stylus before, but the phones now are so good that they, I mean, that might be an option. I actually kind of like it now that I've been using it.
I mean, I think I know what you're talking about. I'm not going to use like an app or nothing, but I'm pretty sure on my keyboard you can flip to that mode or whatever. And I mean, as much as they can hear you and turn that into text, like I would assume that they're, like you're saying, I haven't used that in a long time. So I would try that again.
And I have horrible handwriting, and it can read my handwriting, and I'd say it has like a 99% success rate of whatever I write down, it getting it right. Like even if I misspell a word, it automatically fixes it, respells it, and it's really good.
I'll have to try that because I hear what you're saying. I could see that being useful too, and it's just one of those things you got to get used to.
Yeah, I bought my stylus for $1 at the dollar store too for my phone. So I have a stylus.
The best part is Gun Owners of America give you a pen that has like a like when you click the pen in and out, like it clicks through a stylus, like a rubber tippy thing, and it's a really good pen. So I already sent a bunch of those out to people, but if you ever get a chance to get Gun Owners of America's, like at a table near you or like at a gun show or something, Gun Owners of America's there and they've got like a coffee cup with pens in it, go grab some pens. They're like, the ink out of them is really, really good. They last for a long time. It's like a broad ink, so it's not like, the finest ink. Like some of them, I don't know why, they're like, you can barely read them. There's like totally fine points. This one's like a really wide point for an ink pen. And like I say, when you click the pen part out, and here's the other part. It's a 4-color pen. It's red, blue, green, and black. And when you click out the colors or the pen, part, it goes through rubber instead of just a plastic tip. And when you don't have a pen thing out, a color out, you can use it like you're saying. Now, I don't know if there's gooder and worse styluses, like, again, like if some of them are finer and better than others, but I do have a couple on pens, so I don't have to buy nothing.
The one I bought from the dollar store seems to work great, so I can't imagine that it would be too difficult, to make those, because I think it is just basically rubber, right? Like there's really nothing special about those tips. I don't think they're made out of some special material or anything.
Well, I'm not sure. I think they are. I think they're made out of some rubber with something in them. But I don't think that I haven't seen them like fine tip or fat tip either. So I've only seen them stylus, period. They don't ever have a qualifier to it. But I think they do put something in it that it gives it that, whatever, the screen thinks it's a human finger. Otherwise a piece of rubber would just not be sensed or whatever normally.
Yeah, that's probably true. I know they got those special gloves now, like even like the mechanics gloves that a lot of people like to shoot with. They have special fingertips on those gloves now. On pretty much all of them, I think it becomes mandatory now, because so many people have cell phones that you can use your touchscreen cell phone with like the mechanics gloves now.
Like I was saying, you can get spiral notebooks with holes in them, and then put them in a 3-ring binder. I've done that over the years, especially before the internet and stuff. But now what I like is getting normally what I would do is get a 3-ring, or a spiral notebook for whatever it is I'm going to. Like back in the day when I would go audit a class, I would fill a notebook with notes from a class. If I attended a class, like actually took the class, I would definitely fill a notebook. And if I didn't take the class, if I was just auditing it, I would uh, still pretty much fill a notebook. So anyway, what I do is I have them like books I have a whole thing in my bookshelf that's just spiral notebooks. So for me, the spiral notebook itself is sort of part of the organization or whatever. I'll usually stick stickers or something. Like again, if I go to a specific place, I'll put a sticker or whatever on the front of the notebook. Like at the gun rights policy, I took a bunch of stickers from different tables and stuff that had them sitting out, and I'll stick them all over the cover, and then that sort of becomes the cover of that book. But if it's just a one thing organization, you just stick their sticker on the front of the notebook and stick it on the shelf. And the O-ring pick works as a stylus.
Yeah, but whatever he writes on it stays on the screen forever, scratched on the screen forever, probably using that.
I'm thinking he means some sort of like rubber tipped tool, but yeah, I'm thinking like the little spiky claw looking thing wouldn't be the greatest thing to use.
I have some picks like that for O-rings and stuff, and they're all just metal awls.
They're just bent awls, really, right? They're just curvy and bent in weird shapes. I take notes on my envelopes that come in, and then I lose them. It's not a very good method. Yeah, that's pretty good. Ammo gumball machines are a no for me. Well, that's the thing. Everyone I've seen so far has been fake. I mean, they're there for a joke because not except for a 22, no ammo has fallen through that thing. So they could make ammo vending machines, but they would have to look more like an AK drum, right? You'd put them in there, and you'd have like, let's say, 5-round little slots or sections, and you'd have like 5 rounds in a helical thing, and then as with a spring pushing it forward towards the front of the machine, and as you put in a quarter or dollar, I guess, however much it costs for 5 rounds, you turn that thing and it would drop the 5 rounds. But that way, they're not getting dinked around or dented. They're just sitting in there. You know what I'm saying? Like in a when you open the back of a 50-round Chinese AK drum, the rounds kind of fall in. You can pull them right back out. Like if they mix that with a calico helical drum, and now you can just put 5 rounds in, and they just sit there. They don't jungle around or nothing really. But I don't know. I don't know who I would want to only buy 5 rounds. Maybe at a range, like have those at a range, you might be able to get somebody to, like, hey, can I borrow or do you want to shoot my 45? Yeah, but I don't have any ammo. Oh, I'm gonna go buy 5 rounds. I don't know who the hell would want to buy 5 rounds. Maybe 10 rounds, 20 rounds.
Well, they have one of my local gun stores here. They have one of the gumball machines, and I asked them like, how come they only had 9mm in it? And they told me it's because nothing else fits. Like nothing else will work.
So 9mm does fall out of there. It will work.
Yeah. So it produced 2 rounds of 9mm, but if they do 45s or any other caliber, it won't stack right in the little dropper. And when you go to turn the handle, you'll just be like crunching a case, like the side of the cartridge, right?
Yeah, because it kind of just jams in there, and it would never fall through anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why. So like that's one good thing 9mm is good for.
Yeah, for children, like if you want to leave a bunch of ammo out for children to get a hold of 24 hours a day with just loose change, 9mm is your caliber to go to. Or maybe like 25 or 32 or.
And those gumball machines are not cheap. They're not. I mean, those things are like $700-800.
No. The gumball machines that cost like a quarter.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Maybe new, but look on Craigslist or eBay, you can get for like $35.
Oh, $40. Yeah, I'm talking new. Last time I looked at them, I think they were like $7.99 or something. They were pretty expensive.
But from people that I know that buy those things, either not the gumball kind, but the kind that have little plastic, little bubbles, and you put whatever toy in the little plastic bubble. Those are
one of the ones with the bubbles that you could just fill full of ammo.
Yeah. You get, the big bubbles. There's some that are way bigger than a golf ball, right? Where you got like a really cool toy and they would cost like $1 or something, like 4 quarters. You could put easily 9mm, probably 45. You could probably put 38s in some of those big ones.
Yeah,
And
now
then
that would be a much better idea. The one here is not like that. It's just like an old-fashioned gumball machine where everything's loose sitting in it,
yeah,
But the ones with the bubbles, that would be a good idea.
but that's the ones I was talking about too. I see those. I don't know. I've seen a bunch of them on this tour actually, but I think it's because you can go buy a broken. Well, maybe they're broken, but you can go buy a cheap one, for looking at for like $35, and people are always just sticking probably just whatever's cheap in there, just because to look at. Nobody's actually putting quarters in because, like you say, they don't. I'm surprised two even fall out in a 9mm. Like because it's almost like sticks or something. Like why would they'd have no reason to want to fall out nicely? They're just randomly falling out. You have to jiggle the machine all the time. You think?
Yeah, that's what they told me. Is they're like 9mm was the only thing that I guess they tried with 22 long rifle first, and then they went through a bunch of different calibers, and 9mm was the only one that would feed through their machine.
22 probably is a deal where as long as the like hole is open, it just pours through. So it'd be like putting sand in there or something. It wouldn't work. I went to a gas station in Arkansas. It was somewhere. I think it might have been Arkansas. I don't know where it has gambling because I think it's gambling. But I was driving. I was tired as shit. It might have been Virginia. Do they have gambling in Virginia? I was tired as shit. And it was the middle of the night, and there was nobody around. And I had to keep driving. I think it was Virginia or Arkansas. And I was on my way to DC, and I was just looking for an excuse to not get back in the van. Really. So they had one of these. I've never seen one quite like this before. But have you ever seen the things in like Vegas? Is where I've seen them, where it's like three steps and there's these little shovel things that push out, and then a bunch of people put quarters in there, so now there's a shit ton of quarters just like balancing on these metal steps, and it's a real heavy machine, so you can't just push it, and then you just drop a quarter in, it falls in, and then these little shovel things keep pushing all the time. They look like those little things you use on like a roulette table that the guy who spins the wheel, he's got that little stick to move the.
Oh yeah. Like here, because we can't gamble, they just push out tickets to win stuff at arcades for all the quarters that drop.
Oh, okay, yeah, because that's what was getting me. So I'm looking at this thing, and I'm like I say, I'm just bored, and you know how these things are. They got like a pile of quarters on there that are precariously over the edge, and this thing's pushing at them, and you're like, well, that thing's about to fall off. If I stand here long enough, it's just going to push these quarters off into my pocket. So I'm watching, and I actually was out of the corner of my eye. I knew it was there, but I'm looking around for something to eat or something to drink or just something to do, act like I'm in there for a reason and just standing up instead of driving, right? And I hear chink, chink, and two quarters fall out of it. And that got my attention. I'm cheap as shit. So two free quarters fall out in front of me. I'm hooked, right? I'm like, oh, snap. So right away, I'm figuring out where to put these two quarters back in to make even more money. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I'm pretty sure I put in two and like five came out. So I'm like, done. I went out to the van and I grabbed like a big handful of my laundry quarters, and I go back in there. And I spent like, I don't know, a while, because I don't know if they go in there and they load those things or if it just happens naturally because of the way it's engineered or whatever. But I really thought like I was going to make a bunch of money right then. Like it looked like, every time I put one in, or like it looked like, here's the thing, there was one, two, maybe five or six sides to this thing. I've never seen one that you walked 100% around it. I've only seen ones that you walked up to one side and there was like one window, maybe three sides, but it was up against a wall. This one was just standing in the middle of an area, and it had, the whole thing was windows. Like the whole thing had to weigh 1,000,000 pounds because I'm sure you couldn't budget. But there was like six or five different like pushing step things or whatever. So I would like look at one and I'd be like, okay, there's a bunch of quarters hanging off here. Like, oh no, this one's no good. Like nothing here is going to fall off. I'm not using this one. But I had like a handful of quarters, so I was sitting there for a while. Anyway, what I'm getting at is, do you think you could do that with ammo? Have one of them things just with a bunch of 22 ammo or something?
But ammo, since it lays on its side and everything and will roll around, maybe if you had like I don't know, because if you had like the tops, the tabletop basically, like some of them have different kind of tiers and layers. of tops where everything sits on top of, like you'd want to roll around, right? So you'd have to have them tilted towards the back. So that means everything would always be pushed towards the back. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe with a ramp or maybe with an uneven surface, there might be some way to get it to pile up and like look like it's going about to. Because the other thing is you've got with a bullet is one end is heavy and the other end ain't. So that would be a whole different dynamic to it. Midnight is saying that some of them had bills and stuff, and that's the other thing is they had like $2 bills. I could care less, but they had a couple of like tens. There was $100 bill folded up, but it was like in such a way that you'd have to drop like just handfuls and handfuls and handfuls for it to actually shuffle enough quarters to get to that 100. That was never going to happen unless there was somehow a breeze in there that would blow it around. But the only ones that were even close to falling off were like some cheap ass knife, some dumb coins, which I figure there's no way they were good coins. They were, like 50-cent pieces or something inside of a plastic little doohickey. But I figured it's not like those are probably expensive coins. Those are probably like $1 50-cent pieces or something if they're more than 50 cents even. But mostly it was just big stacks of quarters. It looked like some kind of weird city skyline, with on the one or two edges of this thing and I was winning. Like I did get a bunch of quarters came out. I was playing for like 10 minutes. It was actually a lot of fun. I guess I got 2 quarters from it for free because they just dropped in front of me. And then I dropped a handful in there. So I must have dropped $2.50, half of a roll of quarters, maybe $5. But here's the other thing, since I'm talking about that stupid machine, is I figured out that it's a scam. Like you put in, you just drop quarters into this slot and then they just fall in like an old pinball machine or something like, they're physically just falling in there. So you have that amount of control, but it's still random kind of. But when it scoots, like let's say I drop, because my thing is I would drop 3 quarters in while the little shovel thing was going backwards. So now there's 3 quarters that are going to be pushing forwards, right? Instead of just 1, because I figured, that's the way to get it to actually start moving stuff. And it had to drop stuff from the first shelf to fall to the second shelf and all that. But whenever it would push like a bunch of quarters, like a whole pile of them would fall over into there, it would do some sort of diversionary shuttle or funnel thing where like if it dropped $1.50's worth of quarters, I got 50 cents and the machine kept $1. So they didn't just fall out of a hole to me. They fall into some sort of a sorter. And I don't know what the ratio was, but it would always keep like half the pot. Like if it dropped 6, I would only get 3. And that's when I figured out, my $2 or $5 here is dwindling, even though I keep having them fall off. I should have walked away with like $15 if it would have been, that part wouldn't have been happening. But that must be how they keep that machine from giving away money, right? It has to make money, otherwise they wouldn't put it there.
I think the key to playing those machines is you wait till you watch some guy put a bunch of money into it. Yeah. And then you go right after him and you only put in a little bit, right? And it's like small wins, right? And then you walk away, wait for some other guy to walk up, dump a bunch of money into it. Then you go right back after him and only throw in $1, right? I think that's the way to do it. That's what, when I was a kid, that's what we used to do for like the tickets they'd give for like the prizes. That's what we'd do.
When I was a little ass kid still, like 18 or whatever, and I just figured out, and I could just go into a place and gamble, and I don't remember, it must have been Vegas back then, but I can remember doing exactly what you said, and that is probably true, but it is also guaranteed you're going to get such a look by the little old lady that was just playing that machine that you never want to do that again. Like I didn't realize that it's like a douche move to go up and drop a quarter or something into a machine that somebody's been playing for like a while. Because I remember, I think I was a little kid. I was just, I could drink. So maybe I was 21. I think I'm trying to remember. That was maybe my first trip to DC or to Vegas. But yeah, this lady was playing, and I was I think somebody had told me, play the ones by the aisle or play the ones by the the cashier, because those are going to be tuned to pay out more because they want people to see people win while they're in line or whatever. So I think I was waiting for this lady. Oh, it might have been in Tucson now that I'm thinking about it. We have gambling at the reservations here. Anyhow, some lady was playing and playing, and I was waiting and waiting, and she finally quit playing. And it was like she was playing 4 machines at a time, and then she like stopped to pause to like, drink or smoke or something. And that's when I jumped in and played one of her machines and won. And I didn't win that much, but I won. Holy shit, did she get mad? Like, she didn't do nothing, but like I say, I figured out that was like super rude in a casino to do that.
I always heard that, like, for the slot machines to play the slot machines on the very end of the aisles because, like, that's the ones that, like, people will play just, like, walking by. They'll throw a quarter in here and there and stuff, right? And, like, I always heard those are the machines you actually want to sit down at for a while and play because those are the machines you're going to win. And I've tried that strategy, and I don't ever win anything at slots. I never win anything at video poker. I never win. The only time I ever seem to win money at any casino is actually like at roulette or the blackjack table or what's that Chinese game like Pow Guy or Moo Guy or something like that.
I've never played that. I don't know that one at all. But yeah, like where you have more control or more influence on it.
Yeah, but on all the machines, I've sat down with like $25 in quarters and stuff at a slot machine, and yeah, you dump $25 in and you win like $3 back, type stuff. Like I've never had luck at any of those machines, and I've seen people win machines like right next to me and stuff. I've seen people hit like $500 jackpots and stuff, but I've never had luck at those at all.
I agree with you because I've been told that or whatever by everybody. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just a wise tale everybody believes, but I've also been told that. And then I know that one time I know this was in Tucson. We went to, because we used to go to the casinos when I was younger, because the only thing good about slots is that you can, back in the day, you could sit with a $2 roll of nickels, play nickel slots and get beers. As long as you were in the casino, they would keep giving you beers. So, you'd pay nickel slots and bullshit with your friends and smoke cigarettes and get beers for nickels. I mean, it doesn't matter if you won or not because you were getting beers for nickels. But I dropped, I don't know, $0.25, maybe it was $1. I think we were playing blackjack. And here in Tucson, the blackjack is with dollar coins, like US dollar coins. For whatever reason, I think I was exchanging those back into paper dollars and casually dropped one of them into the machine, like on the aisle next to the cashier, like we're saying, while we were waiting in line for the cashier. And I think I won like $5. So then I dropped the dollar back in with my friend's girlfriend, and that was like the max for that machine. And we won like 500 or 50. I don't remember anymore. It was enough that we were like, wow, that was neat. We won money. That was really neat. It paid for the trip and everybody's dinner kind of thing. It must have been 500 maybe. So we paid for everybody's losses and dinner and had fun the rest of the night and still had a couple of bucks. So that was kind of fun, but that's about my experience with it too. I just think Armament was saying I got hustled by the machine. The slots I don't understand quite so much. I just don't enjoy them. Maybe it's the sort of like video game for grandmas. It's not really the winning as much as it's like their version of a video game. They get to sit there bullshitting with their friends and playing with the machine. But I like the free beers part of a slot machine.
That's why you put the nickel slots, right? And then you tell the waitress big and then get your drinks. Yep.
But then that machine at that gas station that night, that thing, I mean, I don't feel like I got ripped off at all. Like, that was a lot of fun, actually. I would have liked to walk away with a shit ton of money, great, but certainly, like I say, for me personally, that night, I was looking for a distraction, and it was sort of fun to drop quarters into this thing. I probably looked like an idiot trying, I kept walking around this thing because it's in a circle. It was like a round thing, so I kept like looking like if I was some sort of like golf guy looking at my shot or whatever, like, like as if the coins kept changing, like as long as you're not throwing quarters in there, nothing happens. But whatever, I kept looking around. So I had a lot of fun. I was probably sitting there for like 15 minutes and I did probably drop $5 in it, but I consider time well spent, or worthwhile.
I like a lot of the casinos that I've been to. They usually have like one big slot machine at the main entrance that's free, and you get like one pull on it to
Yeah.
a car or something.
Yep.
I always look for that slot machine because it's free, and like the prize is really big, like a brand new car or something. I've never won anything off of it, but actually, no, I take that back. I think I won a free like night stay or something, like a comp room or something out of it, one of the machines once. But I always like to hit those free machines.
No, I know exactly what you mean. We always went to Slots of Fun, and that was across the street from Riviera, and next door to Circus Circus. Slots of Fun was like the $5 side of Circus Circus was like more expensive, and they had that. And I don't remember. I remember you could do something at the blackjack table, and then they would. Maybe we would just do that. Maybe that was just our ritual. But yeah, they had some. I think it was like $1, or maybe it was 10, or maybe you could do something, or maybe you earned spins on it or something. But it was basically like a giant blackjack or giant what do you call it? One arm bandit. What am I trying to say? Slot machine with the 5 like giant wheels or whatever. Yeah, and you'd pull like a giant. It was all on the street too, so everybody driving by could see you doing it.
When I went down to Phoenix, I hit the 2 of the casinos. I don't know if they only have 2, but there's 2 right next to each other, right out. I think it was pretty much right in Phoenix, and those 2 casinos, they were like tribal casinos, and they had no card tables, no roulette wheels. Like all they had was like slot machines and video poker and stuff, because they said that everything else was considered hard gambling and that was illegal or something.
Huh.
And I was just blown away by that. And they stopped serving alcohol like at 9 p.m. or something silly like that. And I was just blown away. I was like, wow, I'd never been to a casino like that before.
All right. Now here is another reason why I liked this thing. Evidently it was called Tropical Island, the coin machine that I was playing with. I'm going to screen share here. Another reason why I think it was hilarious, or it was a fun time.
Wait, what?
Evidently, Julian and Becky were tilting the machine. They were smacking it. There's all kinds of signs around that said, like, don't smack the machine. Like, we have cameras. Like, we'll know if you're smacking the machine. And I guess Julian and Becky were in there smacking the machine around, trying to smack that quarter robot.
That's at a Denny's restaurant?
I guess there was a Denny. It was like a truck stop. Like you could see how big this place is. It's a big ass truck stop with or aisles of beef jerky and aisles of nuts and aisles of candy. Like there was Denny's in it probably. Because that's a reflection of Denny's right there. It was closed though. I remember the restaurant was closed. It was over here and it was all dark, so I didn't even realize it was a Denny's. I don't know what it says here. Them people banned me. Then people banned me? That's hilarious. He's got a band shirt on and he's getting banned.
They're all smiling for the photo. Like
Exactly. Like, what the hell is the story to this? And then they're like, damn you, Becky and Julian. Like, get that picture of them. Give me that. I'm going to take it to the copy machine. Like, give me a copy of the Julian and Becky picture from last week. Like, they're banned.
Like they actually posed for the picture. Like that's
what I
what's
mean.
funny,
Exactly. Oh, here, I should have left this up. Has anybody seen this before? I noticed this is the same place. This is at the same place. 1 yard of Twix bars. I was going to show that to Matt. I think he's nuts for Twix bars.
Wow.
That's one of the magazine holders. This is like literally whatever, 18 inches long or 4 yards long or whatever I'm trying to say. 2 feet long.
Oh, 18. Oh, so it's 18 small bars. 18 1.78 ounce packages.
Yeah,
Oh,
18 Twix bars, and then I guess they're this way. I thought at first it was two big ass ones at first too,
that's what I thought.
but then they had like everything, M&Ms, Butterfingers, and I'm like, oh, it's just a shit ton of them stacked in this stupid box, but technically it's 4 yards long or whatever. You know, if you stacked them all together or whatever, put them all end to end. But they've had, I saw this. This was the first time. See, here's a Snickers one. I've seen this for the first time here, but I've seen it at like 4 different truck stops already on this trip.
I don't know if they do this in Arizona, but when I go gambling here, I always take a bus to go out gambling. They have these like bus rides. They go to the casinos. They take you basically, they'll pick you up, take you there, and bring you back.
Mm-hmm.
And the bus ride costs like $10. But they feed you on the bus. You get free drinks on the bus. They play games where you can win like actual prizes and money on the bus rides. And then when you get off the bus, they give you a $25 chip, right? To go start playing. And so even though the bus ride only costs $10, you actually like you come away like way ahead already, you know, just by taking the bus, and you save the gas money. Like, I mean, the bus rides are awesome. That's my favorite way to go to the casino.
I'm not old enough for that yet, but we got 2 things going for us here in Arizona. One is that we got way more reservations. So many of the reservations have casinos on them. And there's a whole bunch that are like skiing reservations, you know, so you go up and ski and gamble. Then there's the, like, I'm going to go on top of a fancy mountain and gamble, or I'm going to go up into the, you know, up on top of the Mogollon Rim and gamble, or I'm going to go to fancy Sonoita and gamble, or I'm going to go to the river and gamble, or I'm going to go down by Mexico and gamble. So there's all kinds of reservations, and we got all these people that retire here. So I forgot about that kind of thing. But yeah, back in the day when my grandparents were around, not only is it like you're talking about, but down here, the buses are free and they give you $25. So they're basically bribing people to get on their bus by doing everything like you're saying, except it's free and it's just about how much they're going to give you when you get off the bus. It's sort of like depending on how far they got to drive. So if they're driving you all the way to Vegas, they're probably going to give you like $100. If they're driving you like across town, they're only going to give you like $5 or $10. But yeah, they basically, I forgot about that. That's
in Mesquite, Nevada. They have where you gambling and shooting package, where you buy this package, and you basically get to shoot like skeet and clays and stuff all day, and then you go gamble all night.
Oh, really? That sounds
Yep. Mesquite, Nevada. Like that's probably the funnest one, I think.
Well, and see, I don't know. I was going to say, I wonder how things will be, but the stuff I'm thinking of was focused to, like my grandparents. So our grandparents. So that's the greatest generation of the baby boom. Or no, wait, our parents are the baby boom. I was going to say, because that stuff might not be around. It'll, I guess, when our parents get a little bit older, the baby boom generation, that's when everything will really expand for old people. So I guess we haven't even begun to see what the competition for impressing old people has been like yet. But then by the time we're old, at least old enough to want to do some of that stuff, all that stuff's going to be worn out, and they're not going to have the resources to continue to fight for us. They're going to have to redouble their efforts for the next, Gen Ys. Little hint from another guy that figured out knowledge comes from knowledge comes, but wisdom lingers. Oh, okay. Gambling is a waste of your money. Odds of winning big is very small. That's if you are only focused on the payoff. So I totally agree with you. You don't, it's the whole idea of gambling, right? Is you're not going to, it's not investing, and it isn't magic. So it is the experience. So I know for my grandparents, they liked just having something to do and hanging out with their friends or whatever. And they had done stuff like getting on a bus and going on adventures with their friends since when I was a little kid. So they've been doing that since I was alive, I think. It's just the way that they like to go on vacations is get on a bus with people. So that's something that's probably a little familiar to them. But then going and eating buffets and getting catered to and being at a hotel, I mean, that's the stuff that they went for. I think the gambling was just a fun way of paying for that vacation, right? They knew that they were not going to come home millionaires. There was always an opportunity or a chance, I guess, but I think it was just a more entertaining way of giving the hotel a bunch of money for your weekend. But I hear you, and I only gamble never really. I mean, once a year maybe or something. Like I will, if I'm in a place where there's gambling, I will drop $1 or something because you never know when you're going to be lucky. But,
I like to. I specifically go to the casinos out here to see concerts because they'll bring in all these cool old bands like REO Speedwagon or Journey or and it's a free concert in the casino, so you get to watch a free concert. And so I kind of think of it as just paying for the show, right? So I'll gladly after the concert or whatever go and throw down $50 and get a couple free drinks and and stuff like that. But that's when I like to go is when they have the free concerts. I don't know if any other casinos out there have like concerts like that, like at the casino. But
no,
here they have all sorts of old-time cool bands, like real bands, not like cover bands, but real bands come out and play.
And I think part of the draw is that then that incentivizes you to stay around and stay overnight at their hotel because we can fart around gambling all night and then eat something in the morning and then come home instead of.
And the buffets. Oh yeah, man. Like I've had some good and bad experiences at the buffets, but usually it's pretty good. I mean, you get to pick what you want to eat. They got a huge selection, like all sorts of stuff. Yep.
Now, Armin is saying, I wish all the people would have spent the money gambling, would have spent that on firearms. So that's the thing. I mean, I'm with you. I don't understand it either. I mean, I guess it's a preying on people who have a problem, right? Like there's got to be people that are going through a time when they're having a problem. I don't know if it's healthy or unhealthy. I mean, Vegas is still there. We don't have like chaos or anything because of it. I mean, there's certainly examples of people that do things recklessly or irresponsibly in Vegas involved with gambling, but then hell, there's probably, I don't know what the ratio is, but there's definitely people that gamble on sports. Like people that are going to have an addiction to gambling are going to figure out how to gamble, even if it's in Vegas or not, right? Like there's still people with addictions to gambling that don't live in Vegas, I suspect, right? Spending on sports and getting in trouble. But I'm not going to justify it either. I mean, it's kind of trippy. I've been going to Vegas for a long time. My parents really like Vegas. I live really close to Vegas. My grandparents liked Vegas a lot. I don't really know that many people that really like Vegas, but most of my friends will go to Vegas. We used to go to Vegas quite a bit when it was $75 to go up there. But
it's still the cheapest place to fly to in the whole country.
Well, that's the thing. It's such an inexpensive destination that even if you don't gamble, especially now ever since the New York and the castle, New York and Vegas is a family thing now. It's hardly even the gambling is a thing, but it's not the only thing. It's not even the biggest thing anymore.
Well, they have all those amusement rides all over the entire city now, right? That are basically
there's so many things. It's shopping, just a zillion things. But I guess I'm saying is, but even before all that, before the castle and before the New York, that's when I figure they went to family. Before that, it was all just casinos, and all you could do was go to casinos or maybe get a hooker. But it was like that's what you went to Vegas for, is casinos. And even then, it was amazing, huge, and that was shit. I've only been going there since the 80s and 90s, or probably the 90s, I guess. Vegas has been there since the 50s, right? So that means decades and decades of just tons of wealth, and that all comes from people with gambling addiction, basically, right? Like that's just a shit ton of people going there and losing $50 or 100 or 500 or 10,000 at a time and going home poor. And all the excess and the size and the scale of that town and the sprawl is all due to preying on people's sickness. So there's an aspect of it that we all participate in ignoring, but we're doomed. We're not all perfect, for damn sure. But I hear you, that aspect of it is pretty creepy. But it's so much easier to go to Vegas since the castle and since New York, and since MGM turned into a movie theater one instead of a casino, really, because like you say, it's more like just a cheap hub or whatever. It's like a inexpensive.
Mini Disneyland, really. I mean, they got the Pirates of the Caribbean thing there, and like it really is kind of like a mini Disneyland.
Oh, and then the lotto. Holy moly. Now, here's the thing. My grandpa would play lotto or lottery, whatever it was called at the various places he lived. I think ever since I've been alive. And he still managed to like save money and have enough money to live his life and, provide for his family and stuff. So I hear you. I know that it's a super waste of money or whatever, but he certainly enjoyed the shit out of it. And it gave him something to do for a couple of minutes, I guess a couple of times a week. But it creeped me out. And the reason I've never played lotto is because he was so into it. And I was like, come on, Grandpa, you're never going to win that thing. You're just giving the state $10 or $5 or $2, however much it is each week. He'd basically play like $2 every week. And when, I don't remember, it was like when I was in high school, they started getting really big. And then whenever they got really big, he'd pay $10 or get in with people at work and put in $20 or whatever the hell they would do. But that's just, again, one guy who was fairly rational about it, I think. But if it wigged me out, there's got to be people that, just put a dangerous amount, a reckless amount of money on lotto.
Well, here in Utah, we have no lotto, no scratch games, no gambling, no casinos, no nothing like that. So it's really tempting for me when I'm passing through any other state to stop and buy a Powerball ticket for $2 or whatever, because I never get to do it. Like, I mean, it doesn't exist here. So every time I pass through Colorado or Idaho or one of the surrounding states that has a lottery or Powerball, I'm always buying a ticket or two, just because I don't get to just go down to the store whenever I want and buy one.
Now the scratcher things, when I was a little kid, I was going to work one day or something. I remember I went to this White Hen, and I never went to it. And I never go to White Hens. That was a stupid store. It was expensive. For some reason, I didn't go there. But I went there one day, and I bought a scratch-off ticket. And I think I won like $500 or something. And I figure that's a shit ton of scratch-off tickets. And I don't buy them that often. So I kind of figure like I'm still up. You know what I mean? Like I'll buy one every once in a while. Maybe a $5 one. Maybe one time when I was drunk, I bought a $20 one or something, but for the most part, I bought like a $2 or $1 or whatever the cheap ass kind are. Usually, if it says like 7 on it or something strikes my like, oh, I'm gonna buy a scratch off today. And what's the odds? Like I think people have pretty decent odds on scratch offs, right? Like they're at least getting your money back. Like they're pretty good odds because they want to keep people addicted to that shit.
And they're regulated by the state, and they show the odds on the back of the ticket, so like they have to be giving those out.
Yeah, so you win enough. So I'm figuring my whole life, I'm probably up a couple of bucks still on scratch offs. So I'll have fun with a scratch off every once in a while. But usually for me, a scratch off is like, I'm hanging out with my friends and their kid is there, and it's like, whatever. Like, oh, the kid's paying attention. Like, shit, what scratch off do you want? Like, let's play a scratch off for $1, right? Like that kind of thing. Like to do something, or somebody won't shut up about something. It's like, hey, how about we play a scratch off and change the subject? Like I usually just get a bug in my butt and I'll do a scratch off, but I don't do them like every Friday or anything like that. And that's just because it's a little fun.
When I was a kid and lived in Colorado, I'd get the scratcher tickets for Christmas, and from like aunts and uncles and stuff. And I'd get like $20 in scratch game tickets, and like in some Christmases I'd win, like some Christmases I wouldn't win anything. I'd be like, crap, would have rather have had the $20, like. I think those are horrible gifts, though. Don't ever buy someone like scratch game tickets as a gift.
I think it's funny to buy in the kind that are like winners.
Oh, the fake ones.
Yeah, to mess with them. Especially like a little kid who's never experienced a fake one like that, like a joke one. That would be kind of funny. But it's also a dick move, I guess. But that's the thing. These guys are all talking about people that they know that spend money every week on lottos. Like, I don't need more, but I have known people like that. And it just always drove me nuts. It's like, oh, man, like, how am I supposed to take you seriously? You're just throwing away money every week. I'd be like, oh, I'm having a conversation with somebody, and they just pull out $1 out of their pocket and light it on fire as you're talking. I guess I'm just going to ignore that and keep talking to you, but that was weird. All right, well, we went way off the subject, and I don't know how long we've been chatting here. I guess it tells me hour and a half. Holy shit. So this was definitely an off-the-topic one. Anything coming up or we're chatting about before we wrap it up?
SHOT Show's coming up. Are you going to SHOT Show this year?
I can't. I spent more money than I own going to this stupid tour, so I have to still come up for air and figure out, like, I know that I usually live where I've got like most of my credit cards full and no money saved, and that's where I live. So I was there and I was bitching about it, and the AI out there, Skynet, heard me and gave me $1,500 extra credit on my one credit card, and I spent $1,200 on gas and some amount more than that on food, and like I say, a bunch of people bought stuff at the store right before the trip, and like I couldn't have like that couldn't have worked out more even than, you know what I mean? Like there's definitely nothing left over. It's probably a little bit under, but anyway, I'm nowhere near flush or anything. I've got to figure out how to now pay for this trip I just went on. And then Vegas is, I don't know, it's $80 worth of gas each way to get there. But once I'm there, if I go with anyone, it's a hotel. If I go by myself in the van, it's not that bad. So I guess I could go to Vegas in the van, yes. But anything more than that is, I don't live a life where I can plan like that. And unfortunately, it's looking like the hotels that we used to go to in Vegas are double or more the price now. I don't know if that's actually true or not. But if it is, that might limit some stuff. And everybody that is going to Vegas, I think, is going to houses this time, which I don't know if that's good or bad. Because like any town or whatever, sometimes parking is available, sometimes it's not. Like, for example, these guys that went to DC this last couple weeks ago, Marco had 2 different places because of what he does. He was able to get places for people, and both of those places had no parking, like at all, period. They're apartment buildings, so there is no street parking near them, and there's no like just plain old parking like that in the city. So depending on where they're at in Vegas and what they rent and stuff, I don't even know if I'll be able to park there, kind of thing, or use their showers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'd like to go, but it's not guaranteed. I don't know yet. Are you going to go yet? Are you planning on going ever?
Probably in another 2 years when my youngest is out of the house. I got 2 more years, and then my youngest will be 18, and then I think I'll be able to actually kind of take that time and go.
Thanks, Armin, for that, but appreciate the gesture. But I don't get $5 a month on YouTube, so I'd be surprised if I get more than 1 check a year from them. It'll be a long time before I see that $1.30, because they're going to take 30% of that. But thanks for the gesture there. No, I'm planning on writing the what do you call it, the almanac. I'd like to actually do something that's worth something out there. So if I can sell the almanac, get some money from that, then I'm not looking for handouts or nothing, but I appreciate it. But Shot Show for me isn't. I don't drool over any of the product. I know people, but it's also like I know less and less people. So I guess it's just how I want to focus on it. The people I know that are there are not mostly, but a lot of them are trainers. A lot of them are police or military. Um, People from gun shops for sure. People from gun ranges. A lot of people I know that go there from represent ranges or maybe training facilities or something that are from training facilities but go to SHOT Show from the range that they are at, because most ranges don't have a person, but they can find people that'll go. And uh, so the people I know there aren't necessarily. I'm not there. I can't help them. Like the things that I used to do helped them, and that's how I know them. But now that I just sit around talking about Second Amendment issues and that kind of thing, like I'm not productive there. I'm not helping them with anything. Like I don't have an audience that helps them. So for me, going to SHOT Show, I personally don't care about most of the new product. I can't help anybody that I already know. The people that I don't already know, I don't know them, and I can't help them either. So what I'm saying, it's not like me being there does much except for gives me some insight and whatever. But I do appreciate going, and I like to see the industry change and meet the people that I do know, keep in touch with them and stuff. But I don't know. At some point, I'll quit going, I guess, or I'll make enough money that the cost of going to gun show or SHOT Show doesn't make me spend 15 minutes, explaining why I probably might go or might not go. But November's certainly too far away to know. Oh, I always say the stream's going to end, and then we end up chatting, or a lot of us. Well, yawning and talking at the same time. He'll claim at the end that he thought the stream ended. Often, when we're doing these live things, we'll say, "Okay, well, we're wrapping it up," and then something happens, and we keep chatting. So
there was a pause. There was kind of a little glitch in the middle of the show there.
Oh,
he's back, where it kind of just like froze and circled on YouTube for a couple seconds, right?
Oh.
Like we ended it. Like that happens once in a while, one of those glitches.
Yeah, I don't know if I might have a bad wire. Like once in a while, my modem gets outdated, and it could be at that point already because I'm getting a lot of mail in the regular mail from my cable company telling me I'm eligible for an upgrade. And at some point, they're going to quit telling me I'm eligible, and they're going to quit saying I need to do an upgrade. I think because it's been a long time since I've upgraded my modem, like the hardware. But there's a wire out there that gets pretty beat on, and it could be that wire because I've been having, ever since I got back from the trip, I've been having periods of like not connected to the internet.
One thing that really helps, I found, is to just unplug your modem once a week. Just unplug it and reset it, and it dumps all that trash out of it. It gets filled with I forget the name that what the guy told me it was, but like one of the actual internet repair guys who were out at my house told me to do that. That's like one of the best things you can do to keep your connection fast and smooth is just to literally unplug your modem once a week, and it dumps all that trash out of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd get behind that. I did leave it on too because people that are here like to use the internet, and then I've got little cameras that use the internet and stuff. So, but yeah, it clears the cache like Pants was saying. But that's a good idea. But I've done that already since I've been back. Like I say, I think it's the wire.
Yeah, it clears the cache. That's exactly what he says. He literally told me that gets filled up full of basically trash, and it just stays in there and gets all full, and then that's where you get slowed down. And whenever you unplug it, it clears that all out.
Well, we got 13 people in here, and people have been chatting, so I'm just ending it for technical reasons, but or no, just ending it to end it. But again, thanks everybody for jumping in. I'm gonna continue to effort towards having the show back on some kind of a in some sort of a format that might differ from what it is now, or probably will differ from what it is now. If you got ideas for it, let me know. Everybody had an option to jump in over on Patreon, so if you're not checking out Patreon, I'll probably be using that, I think, a little bit more. Well, I know I'll be using it a bit more. I think I'll be using it a little bit more with the Daily Gun Show for sending out links. So I'm kind of debating if I want to leave it. What am I calling this? Like an open discussion or like a general discussion type of chat, or if I'm going to make it more of a news brief kind of thing, like kind of like what Matt does. I don't really watch Matt's news show, but he does some kind of quicker news show during the daytime day. And I've been listening to this NPR, and I can't get enough of how like much NPR is manipulative. And one of the things that NPR does is put on airs. Is that the way to say it? Like they format their show in such a way that they think they're better than everybody or something. Like they're doing it in a format that's, what's the word, like traditional. And I think people give them more credit than they deserve because of the way that they deliver their information. And I was thinking about this show, which is a big fucking mess. And I don't. My goal has not been to try to get information across, except for to friends and other people who could handle the method of delivery. But if I want it to be more impressive or whatever, it's just a matter of being, putting a format to it or something. So anyway, I was thinking about emulating some of their shit and giving it a bit more format, maybe doing it during the day. I just don't know how eager I am to do a show like that. So again, I'm looking for feedback, looking for um, uh, any ideas you might have as listeners to the whole thing. Well, cache is just a temporary thing. So depending on what kind of cache they're talking about, there's going to be commands and things and error messages, all kinds of stuff that a modem, the physical device, might be set to, like, by default to keep track of. For example, my dash cam, right? It'll, every time you go over a pothole, it takes a separate little image and records it. So that could get filled up. Now, if a modem is having some kind of a hiccup, like, I don't know, something down the line that's causing some kind of an alert, and that's something that's unusual or, very rare, but for whatever reason it's happened near Dead Horse's location, so something that's a cache that would normally get one or two entries ever is getting loaded up with hundreds of them. That's the kind of weird thing that people aren't, that doesn't happen often, so people don't look to it as the first line of troubleshooting. But something sometimes like unplugging it will let that temporary, the RAM drop off and, like I say, reset it. And if it was something like a maintenance thing, like they were doing some work on the line and that sent hundreds of little alerts down and filled up everybody's cache, everybody just turning off and turning back on their machines might eliminate the problem permanently, if there isn't any more repairs causing those alerts. But that's a shit ton of potential and hypothetical, so it's just one thing that might have been what he's talking about.
I think it works. I mean, I've definitely had my stuff slow down and get kind of funky, right? And especially with all the people who use the internet in my house, and I've definitely done that, and it's gone like right back to normal.
But we used to tell people troubleshooting, leave it unplugged for 30 seconds, but that was just to like avoid all possibility of any issue. But really, as long as any lights that are on in the machine are empty, like go off, then you've unplugged it. I guess what could happen is theoretically, like one way to think of it is if sometimes people have a thing where they plug all their stuff into, like, I'm going to plug my computer into this thing, I'm going to plug my printer into it, I'm going to plug my monitor into it, I'm going to plug everything else I've got in the table here into this thing, and then I plug this one thing into the wall. And sometimes that power strip has a battery in it. So it's possible that if you were to like unplug it from the wall, the power strip, and say, yeah, I unplugged my cable modem because I just unplugged everything, that somehow that battery is still supplying some juice to your cable modem, and it never really unplugged, like the cache never really dropped. So that would be, one of the reasons we'll say, drop it for unplug it for 30 seconds. Because usually if there is some battery somewhere in the system, that there's not some kind of capacitor isolating it or whatever, so it's able to keep a cache, then you're, making sure that any amount of capacitors have lost their juice.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is like capacitors that hold that juice in there. That's all a capacitor is like a battery.
Capacitors are just like a pond. Like they're a little overflow for a river, so they can hold a little bit of juice, but once the juice isn't there to fill them, they're going to let go of all their juice too. They're not a battery. They're not just going to hold it forever like a lake. They're just going to overflow into a capacitor. So yeah, as long as you turn the flow of power off, a capacitor lets it all go again. Oh, he's talking about browser cache. Yeah, that's different. We're just talking about the modem, the hardware itself, maybe having some sort of
I just use that built-in, the built-in Windows like scan disk thing to clear my browser cache and all that stuff out of my computer.
Scan disk doesn't touch browser cache, but I mean, I guess it might.
Or not it has all those like error and dump files and temporary files, and like every time I go to that, it says like, oh, you got like 2 gigabytes of junk you don't need, and I clear all that out on my computer.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you one just because we're sitting about here talking about it. It's called, I think I've mentioned it before, WINDIR stat. And I'm running it right now. I'll share the screen. So I'll say it again so that you can, it's called WINDIR STAT. So Windows Directory, I don't know what stat's supposed to mean. So right now I turned it on and I pointed it at one of my hard drives, and it'll take a little while because it's a bigger hard drive or whatever, but this little status bar down here is going along. And when it's all done, it's going to give me a visual representation of what's going on in my hard drive. And I found this to be one of the most useful tools that I've come across for Windows. So, one day you're just like, hey, I'm out of hard drive space. Where did it all go, right? So sometimes you know where it is because you put a bunch of stuff on your computer. Like I put a bunch of videos or something, something big. Sometimes I install a software package or something, but a lot of times you just have to suspect where things might be. And then there's these giant Windows files and places that are on the machine that, just get huge, and it'd be nice to delete them, but sometimes you don't want to just delete, important stuff. So this gives you a visual representation of everything. I'm going to let it continue to cook here for a minute. Let's see. Pants is saying CC Cleaner or C Cleaner dumps browser cache, gets rid of mucked up registry entries also. My thing is, I used to work for Windows. So back before, let me think. No, it was while we were doing gun websites. One of my last 9 to 5s was working for Microsoft. And basically they showed you how to work Windows, and then you help people fix Windows. And then I became a supervisor, I think. So I wasn't on the phone so much. I'm trying to remember, it was a long time ago. But in the process, I had to learn Windows way more. I mean, I'd used Windows, but I had to learn Windows. And once I learned how Windows works, let me think. There's things that can clutter it up or whatever, but it's clutter. It's like you're driving along and you've got a bunch of like empty bottles and paper wrappers and plastic bags and stuff in your car. You can have a sloppy car if you want. Nobody cares. It might make a difference if somebody's sitting down in a passenger or something in your car and you got stuff all over. But at some point, if you got too much junk in your car, there's like a bottle falling underneath your gas pedal, or there's a bottle falling underneath your brake pedal. It's a bottle in the way of your dashboard. Like there's just too many bottles at some point. So you need to get rid of them. And there's more than one way to do that, of course. And I don't like the idea of adding more bottles to get rid of bottles. So like, I don't like the idea of adding software to get rid of stuff like that, because software is what caused stuff like that. And that's just my glitch, because I know how Windows works or whatever from back in the day. And I know it's too much to ask people to learn how Windows works to go in and learn where to remove the stuff physically, but this is one step between, I think, learning where all the pieces of things might be, and then how to decipher which ones to get rid of, and using some software to just do it. Because I guess my other apprehension is most of the time that software works pretty good, but when it doesn't, it can be catastrophic. And I don't like to recommend anything that can potentially be catastrophic for anybody, even if it's a very rare thing. Now, all my experience comes from 19 years ago, so I'm not saying I'm current on anything either. Wow, this is taking forever, so I must have some large files, I guess. But eventually, will they show you how to break windows? People don't live in glass houses, shouldn't ghost Yeah. It was pretty fun working for them. They're a neat company. And I was working for them at a time when they were beyond, like they were just about to get their ass handed to them with smartphones, right? So they were at a time when they weren't trying to act like they were the biggest and best anymore. They were a pretty decent company at the time. Windows Millennium is what I got hired for, and then went to XP. Was even at the time I was working there, Millennium got retired or was about to be retired. Nobody was using it. And then it was Office 2000, I think, downstairs. And that's when I made the decision that
I still have laptops that run off of XP.
Yeah, XP's pretty solid. It was a good stuff. I liked it. I don't mind any of the operating systems since. No, I shouldn't say that. There's been some really bad, really bad ones. I just never owned those, I guess. Holy moly! I had no idea. Usually this takes a couple of moments. I didn't know I was going to make everybody sit here and watch this thing happen for 20 minutes. But now it's at 94%, so I feel like at some point it's got to finish. Here we go. So I got this giant file, which is some page file, part of Windows. That's another file, big giant file. You can see whatever I click on down here. I don't know if I've showed you this before, and I've clicked on it a couple of times. But like this is something. So this is under Users, Adobe, Common, Media Cache Files. So this big ass yellow. So you see how when I did that, when I clicked on the C drive, it selected everything down here. When I went to the Windows portion of the C drive, it clicked on that. When I went to this user section of the C drive, that's this whole section. So that's like the users folder. Then there's the Dell folder. There's the app data folder. There's the roaming folder, the Adobe folder. Those are the common files. And then this is the media cache files. And within those media cache files, there's that one and that one and that one. And you can visually see how much of my hard drive it's using, right? So this one file here is something called Gun Websites History 2014 or 2004 to 2019. It's a gig. It's 932 megabytes right there. So this is a CFA file. So this is just some, internal file inside a window, inside a Adobe that I needed, I guess, to make this thing. But this was a long time ago, 7/25/19. So now I can take and delete that. There it goes. And now it'll readjust this whole thing. And by deleting that gig of stuff right there, it just made the Adobe files, that section, that much smaller. And now in there, I still have these 4. So this one's 200, 200, 200, 200. So these are, what is this, Rally Trip 1. I must have done some video in there.
I've never seen it visualized like that.
Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
So now this thing is a giant file under Windows, Software Distribution, Data Store, datastore.edb. Like, I got no idea what that is, but now I can go look it up, figure out if it's necessary or not. Here's a big one. That's an AI file that I'm actually, I guess I closed it now, but that's a file I was working on today, right? 11/18. Yeah, I was working on that like yesterday, I guess. But that tells me that that one file, whatever this picture is probably all it is. Oh, you know what this is? This was a piece of paper I've been working on. Yeah. So this piece of paper I included with all the Patreons. So that piece of paper was half a gig. And then when I made a copy of it, because I fucked with some shit and I didn't want to, recopy the same one, I wanted to have a separate, boom. So just by making one and then a copy of it, that's a gigabyte right there. So that's how you can fill up a hard drive real fast. So I can just kind of look down here and see where big ones are. And like this one's in Dropbox and it's some, what the hell is it? It's half a gig of something in Dropbox. So that's interesting. I might dig into that one day. That one looked like a big one, but it's actually a shit ton of little ones. I'll probably go in here and delete these 4 big ones. Like this page file, that's just part of Windows. So while it might be tempting to get 16 gigs back that way, I'm not gonna. I'll probably go figure out what the hell this big one is. I'll figure out, was this one big one right here? I've already clicked on it. I don't know what the hell I clicked on, but it's working. Anyway, you get the point. I probably shouldn't be clicking on this while I'm distracted and shit. But you get the point. It's called WinDirStat. It was free. And you point it at a hard drive. I pointed it at external drives, that are connected with USB. And it'll let me know, like, what's neat is when you have a drive from an old computer and then you put it into some kind of a drive bay or something where you turn it into a USB storage device. And then you use something like that, it'll show you where all the Windows files are. And now that you're not using that hard drive for Windows anymore, it's not running a computer. It doesn't need to have the operating system on it. It's real easy to drop all those files off and give yourself all that storage space back. Pretty sure I still have Windows 3.1 on floppy. I know I do. But I think I might be getting rid of that stuff. I've been watching some really cool shows. I wasn't going to talk about it, but since we're 2 hours in and we're not closing it down, I guess. You ever seen the show called The Toys That Made Us?
That sounds really familiar.
So,
is that on Netflix?
Yeah.
I think that.
And it's on Netflix. It's been around for a while, but they only had one season, sort of. And it was a season with only 4 shows. And it was like G.I. Joe and something, Star Wars figures maybe. So, if you've seen it or you know what I'm talking about, it's like they just dig into toys from the 70s and 80s and stuff. And it was driving me nuts because they kept saying it was an 8-part series and there was only 4 of them on Netflix. Well, I was looking around my movie theater now that I'm back from the trip, and I found season 2 with 4 more, and then season 3 with 4 more on top of that. So there's 8 of them that I haven't seen yet, or I've seen them all now. But that show is freaking awesome. Like, definitely check it out. The Toys That Made Us. That show gets into a little bit of computers, but that I usually watch documentaries and stuff. I was watching something else, and that got me. As I'm watching these shows, they'll say something. What they say? Something like there was a Lego thing. I think I posted it on Gun Channels. Some weird movie that Lego had paid for. That, like, how a lot of times toys will come up with a movie or a TV show to try to sell their toys. So Lego was like, oh, we should try that. So this is way before the Lego movie or anything. They're like, let's make a new toy and then let's make a TV show for it. And it was like a creepy, weird action figure that wasn't Legos, but it was made by them. And then they made this show, and it was this really weird TV show that was made in the 90s, I guess. And it's just weird. So as I was watching something like that, I was on YouTube, and then I found a site where a guy was putting together Apple IIs and Commodores and stuff. And I'm keeping all the, and that gets me to where you were saying you got Windows 3.1 on floppy. I've had this stuff, and I just don't think I'm ever going to have time to ever dig into that stuff. And since there are still people out there that enjoy the old stuff, I think I'm just going to start selling all my old computer stuff. Get it out there to people that actually enjoy it. I mean, if there's people out there that are running Windows 3.1, back in Windows 3.1 days, I was a Mac guy. So my stuff from Windows 3.1 days is like 1 to 10 Windows and Apple. I have a lot of old Apple stuff, and I always assumed one day, I'd put that stuff together just for the nostalgia, but I think I'm going to get rid of it all. I don't think there's any need to keep it around. According to this guy that was doing the show I'm talking about, or the channel I'm talking about on YouTube, he wasn't the hugest channel or nothing, but he certainly had a lot of people that were interested in what he was doing and were participating in his whole, stuff that he was doing. It sounds like there might be more than one way people are still playing with those old things. Like there are some things that use those old computers and they just never upgrade it. So there are some people that use Commodores and DOS and all that other shit to do stuff. Like they just have old machines that use that to command them, which is neat because they have to run old languages and stuff to run their businesses and that's kind of neat. Like I guess at some point they're kind of desperate to keep old stuff around, and it's got to be frustrating to find people who still know it. But at the same time, it was super neat watching this guy talk about how like the whatever the version of BASIC was that they used in those days of this computer he was looking at, like how much more sophisticated things they can do with the knowledge we have today, even with the old computer code. So just because back in the day when they built this code, they were new to it all, they just didn't, they were doing little basic stuff with it. They didn't realize what more they could have done because they didn't know what more there was to do. But now that there is, 2020 hindsight, these guys and gals that are working with old BASIC are able to just blow it away, do like way more stuff with it. Yep, I've got a Wozniak Sign 2E also. I'll be selling that, I think. Maybe I won't. The cheat code for all the money in SimCity, it might have been fun. Or was it like... It wasn't...
No, it was fun, remember? And if you used it 3 times, like a monster, like a Godzilla would come out, wreck your city, or a tornado or something.
Well, I would put in the no catastrophes thing so that wouldn't happen. But I think you could put in like bank or something like that, and it would give you not 10,000, but it would give you like 1,000 or something. And was it that you could only do fun 3 times, or was you could only do the other one?
Fun was 3 times. I remember that one. Fun was 10K, and
it might be the other one would give you like 1,000, and you could do it like unlimited amount. Because I know one of them was like just to kind of help, and the other one was to cheat. And I guess the bigger number one was to cheat, because 10,000 in SimCity was enough to buy like a lot, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah, that might be the one that it was. Now, I like SimCity a lot. That was a fun game.
I know they have a lot of newer versions of that out, but I've never played any of the newer versions. I've only played the original in black and white.
I bought one at one point, and I was like, it was like watching an old TV show or something. It was like, oh yeah, as soon as I had it on my computer, and I was like, oh yeah, this is not that fun. I was like, okay, I'm remembering all the good stuff and not remembering like the boring part. There was just the the dumb parts of it. So then whenever I did that, I think I was also like, okay, that's why I don't play video games. Like that was a massive waste of time. Whenever I do something that like waiting for it to load, or with SimCity, it was like you have a basic idea where you want to go, and then you got to, even if you put it in fast forward or whatever, you got to wait for the city to catch up with where you want to go, because you got to wait for it to, create, or people to grow, or whatever you need. And at those points, I don't even enjoy the game, because I'm sitting there thinking, oh shit, I got like 8 other things I could be doing, and I'm not doing them, so I can play this game, but I'm also just sitting here watching this game being bored because it's not fast enough for me.
Oh yeah, Oregon Trail. I was playing that just a little while ago. There's like a website you can go to and just play the original Oregon Trail.
Just through that.
I remember that game being a lot harder when I was younger. I don't know if they made it easier or just, but every time I played it recently, it seemed like that game was like really, really easy now. And but as a kid, I remember like, man, I'd die all the time during the trip, get dysentery or something.
I only really remember playing that one like at school.
Yep, that's where I first played it. It was probably, I think, like 4th grade, I think, when we had a computer lab. It was like a really big deal for us. Like, I think we were like the first school in our state or in our city or something to have a computer lab, and we'd have like 4 computers in there. And then like they would like send kids one at a time or like 4 at a time to go into the computer lab for like 20 minutes. And that's all anyone did was play. Like, I think there was like 2 games on it, like Oregon Trail and some other game. And like everyone would just go there for 20 minutes to play Oregon Trail because there was really nothing else to do on that computer because there was no internet or anything like that.
Well, the other things would have been to like program it to flash colors on the screen, and to like, that's the problem, is there was a time like, when we had those computers, we didn't have a computer lab. It was I think a little older than that, or I was a little older than that, but we had, like, for the high school at least. Is it high school? For the high school, we had like, was it high school? How many years are you in high school? 4 years? Yeah, it could have been high school.
4 or 5, depending on where you're at.
No, yeah, it was high school.
Yeah.
In junior high, we did have a computer lab, I guess, but I honestly don't remember. They must have been those kind of computers. We never had any opportunity to ever use a computer for a game, though. Like when I was in junior, in a class where there was like computer programming, it was like, everybody do this, everybody do this, everybody do this. There was no like do anything on your own.
Well, everything was on floppy disk, like the big real floppy disks, like not even the smaller like hard disk, but like the really thin, like everything was literally on a floppy disk, like even Oregon Trail, all that stuff was, and they were all Apple computers.
But when we was in high school, all we had is like a computer, and that computer was on like a little wheeled cart, and it would go around. So like, oh, so and so's got the, or no, I'm thinking of, I guess that was before. But so whatever's that be, whatever's elementary school or whatever, they had like a computer, and they would just like, one class would have it for like 3 or 4 days. Oh, we got the computer, and that's where you could play Oregon Trail, because nobody knew what to do with that fucking computer, because like you say, it was just sitting there, and it was, yeah, you're a little kid, so you had nothing to write and couldn't connect to anything, so it was either play the software that was sitting next to it or just look at it. Yeah, okay, I guess I was getting that. It makes more sense that it was in kids' school anyway. Yeah, that was when I was going to say, when we were in class to like learn the computers or whatever, like we had there was no way to play Oregon Trail, because unless you could pull Oregon Trail out of your butt, like you say, it like wasn't on the computer. You had to have a disc, and we didn't have any discs. So what we would do is like, whatever the hell, instruction it was that day, we're going to make it look yellow. So you'd sit there for half an hour, and then the screen would turn yellow, and you accomplish that by telling it codes or whatever, and then they'd explain shit on the chalkboard for a while, and then, like Pants is saying, you'd figure out how to make it say hello, and then it would go from the top left to the bottom right by 1 second later it would go down 1, and then 1 second later it would go over 1. and we would just basically follow along and see that those things could be told. But then, like I said, that part was boring because we didn't know the potential of what we were doing. If they would have said to us, they would have had like one robot arm somewhere, or at least a video of a robot arm moving, and been like, look, you're moving a thing across the screen, but you could also be moving a robot arm around. I think then we would have all been paying a lot more attention.
I remember there was some kind of basic like paint program too you could do on it. Draw very basic, like it was really pixelated type blocky pictures. It wasn't like near as smooth and everything. The paint programs we have nowadays, it was really blocky. It was basically little blocks like pixels that you drop in to create a picture. You couldn't like just draw a line with your mouse. You had to like just basically drop in blocks, and then you could make pictures.
All right. Well, now we're talking about computers and whatever. They're neat or whatever, but there's other things to talk about. So it's about 2 hours for 2A. Pink's out there now. Thanks everybody for showing up. There's a couple of still 12 people out there. We will continue to tweak the format, and we'll continue to tweak what we're doing as projects here. And right now I'm trying to digest and figure out the best way or an interesting way to get all the information from this last tour out there, because quite a bit of neat stuff encountered along the way, and get ready for 2020. Black Cat's just getting here. You just waking up on that end of the world, Black Cat, or it's not that late? What is it? No, it could be already, huh? Is it 3:30 in the morning out there? Castlevania. I think that's what he's thinking of, right? Is it Castlevania?
Oh, that's right, Castlevania.
I don't remember what it did either, though. Even back then, I didn't like the video games. But I think the reason I didn't like the video games is because what like Pink is saying, there was Flight Simulator. And whenever we had those shitty computers in school, my parents worked on computers, and they did not work on shitty computers. They worked on the kind of computers that were in like big building or big rooms with air conditioning, and like they all look like refrigerators with real players on them. So they were like, I guess, the deluxe shit of the day. So I can remember playing Flight Simulator. Like I remember being aware of computers and then playing Flight Simulators. And I don't mean like aware of computers because, I grew up, but like way back in the middle of the 80s, I guess, like when nobody even knew what computers were really. I already knew that there was Flight Simulators, and they were wicked awesome. They were different back in the beginning than they are, or they were even when we were all in school. In the beginning, they were black and white lines, like the white, what do they call that? Like wire drawings or whatever. Like they were just much simpler, but they were insanely awesome. And they had all the physics, and you could fly and everything. It's just that they had nowhere near the amount of ability to give you any kind of graphics. So they were just all like these wire frames. Is that what I was thinking of? Wire frame airplanes flying around with like little specks of dark, light and dark things. But like I said, I remember seeing that stuff. I never really got a chance to play because I was a little tiny kid, but I knew that stuff existed. So when I would go to school and see like Oregon Trail and that kind of shit, I was like, come on. There's real stuff out there. Getting up for work at 2:30. Right on. Well, like I say, with that, I guess we'll call it 2 hours for 2A. We'll be back tomorrow for episode November 19th, and we'll end it. Just end it this time instead of saying it.